Thank you guys for watching the Animal One Guy YouTube videos. If you like this video, please leave a like and even comment below. And if you like all my content, please hit the subscribe button. And why not click the bell icon for notifications too? That way you can see all my videos. Give me the ball. Hey, reptile rescue family and all just reptile keepers, people who care, want to learn about reptiles. I've done videos about this kind of before and topics. Hi, Simba. Things like that. But today, this video is going to be about thermoregulating, how reptiles do it, why reptiles do it, and how to make sure your tank is set up correctly for this. We're not going to go over exact temperatures for all the different reptiles and amphibians and everything because they're all over the place and that would just be way too much. And yes, the concept is basically the same across the board, but the way the reptiles do it is actually different, and we're going to go over that. So let's remember a few things. Reptiles are cold-blooded. That really means they generate very, very little heat on their own. And when they're doing nothing, they're almost generating nothing in terms of heat. But the other problem too is people will think that's the extent, right? So they thermoregulate because, you know, they're cold and they have to get hot. Well, yes, but also reptiles can't, where are you going? Reptiles can't cool themselves either. So this is the problem that is often forgotten. Reptiles can't cool themselves. So Simba can't sweat. The reptiles have scales. They don't have sweat glands. They don't have pores. They don't sweat through their tongues like dogs do and things like that. So when we're setting up an environment in an enclosure, we do get the ability to do a couple things that could, if done right, make this process much easier than it would be in the wild type environment. So as you notice in most reptiles keepers' tanks, they'll have temperature probes, typically 1 or 2. That's great. They'll have heat sources, radiant heat panel, heat mat. Okay, great. They'll have cooling sources, fan to pull air out. That's the second probe. That probe is actually monitoring if it gets too hot. And you know, sources will also have light sources that may or may not give off heat. All light sources will give off heat, but how much does it give off? So LEDs, these are just for providing extra light to light up his enclosure. Fluorescent bulb happens to be UVB and UVA production. This will generate more heat than this, but this cannot light and heat the enclosure. It's too little heat. It's there to provide UVB, and it does light the enclosure as well, but not as bright as I would like it. Okay, great. We also have another vent over there that I have the ability to open. When you open vents, you can cause the, before we get to that, and then permanently opened smaller vents to just have some airflow moving. But when you do open bigger vents, you can cause the chimney effect and you can pull out hot air. So you got to be cautious to know that you're doing that. Okay, fine. Now, we see how it's set up. We're just using this as an example. You can replace this radiant heat panel with a basking bulb, a ceramic heat emitter, a different type of radiant heat panel. You can replace this heat mat with, again, basking bulbs and whatever you want to do, floodlights. You're setting up your enclosure for what you feel works best for you. That's fine. That's why I don't want to talk about just the heat. I've gone over the heat mats and things like that. But so these reptiles need to thermoregulate. What does that mean? So they don't have an ability internally inside of them to maintain their body temperature, whether it be heat, like we do when we're getting cold and we start to shiver and our teeth clatter and we can, you know, our body's trying to warm itself up, or whether when we're too hot and we start to sweat to try to cool off. Okay. Yes, we can do other things, get to shade and things, but our body internally is regulating our temperature, or attempting to, we should say. They can't do this inside. They can only do this on the outside. So they need to have the ability to do that during the day and at night. Now, what does that mean? We're going to get to that. Yes, guys, this is one of these informational videos. And remember, this concept, this thermoregulation, it's for all reptiles and amphibians. The temperature ranges, though, are just different. That's why we're not going off temperatures. So now that we know that these things can't heat up, and this includes turtles as well, guys, who will use water and land to thermoregulate, or different depths of the water. But we won't have to get into that. But just know turtles do it as well, and fish and frogs and you know, all of that. Because even if they can't come out on land, different parts of the water have different heat levels. Okay, so for your reptile in your enclosure, all right, what are we doing? What are we thermoregulating? Okay, so everyone kind of understands this part to some degree. Most people, you have a hot side, you have a cool side. Cool. Why is that there? So people think, okay, because sometimes I see, because look, there's a radiant heat panel here. And yes, this is maintaining about an 85-degree air temperature for the middle of the tank. This having another heat source means this side of the tank is cooler. That having no heat source additional other than the fluorescent bulb, which is not a lot of heat, is cooler than this, okay? So during the day, reptiles need to have that perfect sweet spot internally, and the reptile themselves know what it is. That's the other key. So when Simba is too cold, he will come on here and he will get hot. Once he hits that maximum hot point, he'll start to get too hot and too hot. If he laid here all day, he would overheat. So he's going to come off of here and he's going to go to some place to be cool. Up there, if he wants to, underneath in his hide under here, or if he's really hot, he'll take a soak in the water, which is cool. That water doesn't have any heat by it. It's covered. It's nice and cool, you know, 70-degree water. And when you're basking out here at, you know, 100 degrees, going into 70, that's nice and cool. He can fully submerge. His whole body fits. Great. Why are they doing that? Well, it's not just to feel comfortable, because obviously for us, like, if we get too hot, we feel uncomfortable. Sometimes if we're too cold, we feel uncomfortable. Some people prefer to be more hot. Some people prefer to be more cold. For them, it's actually everything that's going on here. There's this perfect sweet point where their body is functioning, you know, at its optimal point. So where their digestion is going to work perfect, where their internal immune system is going to be nice and strong, where their energy levels are going to be at, you know, the peak performance, where their growth is going to be at peak performance, because all of those things are right. So, yes, typically when they eat, they will want to bask, but not always. Sometimes people feel they're not basking, and they may not be basking when they eat because their internal body temperature may be at the correct level for digestion already. And they know when they eat, if it's not, they know to come here. But also sometimes they'll come here after they eat and they're starting to get too hot, and they will get off because it's too hot. Think about like overcooking your food, right? You can take a piece of steak and you can turn it into a piece of shoe leather, right? You can just cook the crap out of that. That's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to get it at the optimal position. That way their body can dissolve what's in their stomach to the correct level to allow their body to absorb it. They don't want to blast it through. Okay, good. Now, what can they do to cool off as well? Not all lizards, but some will also dig underground. So they may not need all these places. You have plated lizards and uromastics that like to be on more sand or millet and dig down and bury themselves. Even skinks will like to bury themselves. But you can also do that by making artificial things that go underneath. Nala's sleeping under there right now, under here, where they have that feeling and where it is cooler because of that. And they don't have to actually dig the hole themselves, which is another thing to note. But on top of that, we've gone over the heat sourcing and this and that. There's another key part of this that can make it bad, which is sometimes why people like to have multiple spots that are maybe warm or maybe cool, and that's the UVB. What? That's right. Not only do they thermoregulate from hot and cold, but they also regulate themselves from UVB absorption. You typically will have multiple areas that have UVB. I like to have two for larger lizards. A hot side that has UVB and a cold side that has UVB. So if Simba is too hot, but he still needs UVB, he has someplace to go. If Simba is too cold, but needs UVB, he has someplace to go. If Simba is too hot or too cold, but doesn't want additional UVB, he still has boom, 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 and under here, places to go. Even he'll also lay up on here. He'll lay on the ramp there. He'll lay under the ramp. He's trying to escape. He's being naughty. Naughty, naughty, naughty. Cut that out. Cut that out. Trying to come out? Yes, you are. So it's important to know. Now, people will say, well, yes, but you have a big lizard, therefore you've got a big tank, 6 foot, 3 foot, 3 foot. I'm not going to put a bearded dragon in here. I'm not going to put a chameleon in here. True. Absolutely correct. So, and also the different ones do it differently. So no, I wouldn't have a heat mat like this, and I don't for my bearded dragons. I don't have a giant heat panel for my bearded dragons. Still, in a smaller tank, your sources for providing the heat are typically smaller, and you still will have that gradient level where hot goes to cold, where there's heavy UVB, where there's light UVB. And, you know, if you have questions on heat, you can always ask, but a lot of the heat sources are all over the internet. But the last thing I'll say when looking at that is you want to look at your reptile's usage of that. Is your reptile spending all day, the entire day, basking on this heat source? It's probably not getting hot enough, right? You don't see that thermoregulating occurring during the day. They shouldn't be on the heat source the entire light hours. They should be moving. They should be on the heat source, then they should be off. They could be back on. It all depends on how big your reptile is because they will hold heat longer, how often they do this. So if you see them basking the entire day, don't go up crazy. Kick up the heat source by, you know, a degree or two. See what happens. Are they basking split? Then you're good. Same thing, UVB. If you've got your UVB perfectly in the middle and it's shining through the whole tank and your reptile is spending a lot of time hiding underneath in a log, in a hide, shift your UVB over to one side so you have that gradient. And then you may see during the day that your reptile spends half of the day away from the UVB, but not under the hide. It's able to get away from the UVB and still be out so you can see it. Then you're probably good. If your reptile spends all day on the cool side of the tank, the hot side is probably too hot, not just the basking spot, but just the air temperature. So you have to look at your reptile's behavior to see what is it doing. So we want to see thermoregulation actively taking place during the day. Now, the last part, and I know this is getting long, and unfortunately my information videos are long, and all you get to see is Simba moving around. The last part of that is the nighttime temperature drop. This is very important, very important. Like most humans, we tend to sleep a little bit better, slightly cooler. Not freezing cold, slightly cooler. I still get under the blanket, but I don't keep the heat cranked up at night. Reptiles are the same way. They get a nice, deep sleep when their environment is cooler. Simba's temperature goes from like 85 to about 78. I have Vivarium Electronics that has a night and daytime temperature mode, so one heat source takes care of it. You may not need that. Your room temperature may be good. You may have my bearded dragons don't have a night temperature. They do have a separate ceramic heat emitter on a separate thermostat that will turn on if it gets to 68 degrees because bearded dragons are healthy down to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So you need them to cool down at night. The amount, again, differs for the reptile because from where they're from, their bodies have naturally adapted through evolution to either get really cold at night or just slightly cold. But they need that slight temperature drop or sometimes drastic temperature drop to get into a nice, deep, REM sleep. 1. 2, that allows the things in their body that are running on overdrive, their immune system, their digestive system, all of the processes to slow down and basically just heal itself, regenerate, refuel. You think of an engine that you're just going to keep floored 24/7. It will burn itself out. Think of small motors for maybe massagers and things. They say, like, after you use this high torque motor, let it rest for 30 minutes and cool off before you use it again. It's the same thing going on in here. They need to cool down at night. The amount differs. They need to cool down at night so their immune system can rest. It doesn't burn itself out, so that their digestive system can rest. It doesn't burn itself out. And so they have a good amount of energy at the start of the next day. All right, guys, hopefully we've gone over. I know it's 15 minutes of just talking. Simba just being a ham for the camera, per usual. Simba, why can't I ever just film and you just lay there cutely, okay? You can never do that for me? No, you can't. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it helps answer some questions on really what thermoregulation is doing, why it needs to be done. Thanks everyone who supports me. And I got another blitzer for you guys. For the people who stayed this long, I want you to leave a comment, but not "I stayed," because that is too long. I just want you to leave in the comment, "Hi Simba." That's right, HI space Simba, SIMB. You can do whatever you want after. Leave it as a separate comment and then leave me your big comment. Thanks everybody, take care. Hey Reptile. Thank you guys for supporting my reptile rescue family.